Hello my Chucky fans, class is in session. We got another episode of the Chucky TV series. This one titled Death on Denial, paying homage to some late television murder mysteries, where we not only get to spend a lot of time with Tiffany Valentine, but her children, Glen and Glenda, something a lot of fans like myself have just been waiting for. And this might be a rough episode to break down, cause I got so many conflicting thoughts on this episode. I'ma definitely need your Chucky fans' opinions down below on what you thought of this episode. You gotta admit, it's one of the most creative, kind of out there episodes. I'm gonna be really curious to see how a lot of Chucky fans took this episode, whether they want more of this kind of Chucky, or they just kind of want to get past it to more of the scary Chucky, or if maybe we're done with that and this is the kind of Chucky we're gonna get from now on. But first, I want to go ahead and thank the sponsor of today's video, Vessi. Vessi is a sneaker company that's not only changing the game with some comfortable footwear, it's also stylish, waterproof footwear. Vessi shoes are 100% waterproof thanks to them being made out of Diametex material. It not only keeps you waterproof, but it also keeps you cool in the summer and warm in the winter. They are comfortable, lightweight, breathable shoes here. I took out my Vessis on my walk to my mailbox where it just so happened to be raining, and thanks to my Vessi shoes, I don't have to worry about coming back in with some wet socks or uncomfortable wet feet. I have the peace of mind knowing that with Vessi, I'm not only looking good walking to my mailbox, I am staying dry. So please support my channel and do yourself a favor by clicking the link in my description or using code 3CFilms at Vessi.com, where you'll be able to get $25 off an adult pair of Vessi shoes and even free shipping for select countries. I think it's a choice you won't regret, guys, so thank you to Vessi for sponsoring today's video and providing me with some awesome footwear. So kind of giving you my thoughts on this episode. Look, there was a lot of things in here I actually really liked and was kind of intrigued with, but I will say for the majority of this episode, I don't know if I was really rocking and vibing with it as much as I wanted to. In season 1 of the Chucky TV series, Don Mancini was very adamant in interviews to say that that season was very much going to go back to the feel and vibe of Child's Play 2. He was saying that's what he wanted to go for, even using the Child's Play 2 theme music in actual teaser trailers. I kind of always took that to mean that that would kind of be the permanent feel for the TV series, and we would stick with that tone of sort of a scary Chucky, which is what I always kind of prefer. But now I guess with season 2 bringing in characters like Glen and Glenda, which I have been asking for, so it's my own fault, they're stepping away from the early Child's Play vibes and definitely rolling into See the Chucky territory, which it's just not the type of Chucky I love. I'm glad there's people out there who are fans of Seed of Chucky. I get those comments all the time, and there are people who consider that to be their favorite Chucky movie. I just think that was a clear downfall for the franchise. There's a reason that was the last theatrical Child's Play movie within this timeline and franchise, and why Don Mancini and crew were forced to go back to Scary Chucky, which made us all get reinvigorated and interested with the character. And now we're seeing the same thing kind of happen, where we're going back to campy and comedic Chucky, and I just don't know how I feel about that. I'll explain more as we break down this episode, so let's just get started here with episode 4 of season 2 of the Chucky TV series. We start off with a recap directly giving us scenes from Seed of Chucky, so that right there should let you know why the vibes was so different. Bringing us then to something that I'm sure a lot of people love and are into is when Chucky sort of breaks the fourth wall and acts like an actor or celebrity who portrays this character. Admittedly, yes, this can be cute and fun for Chucky to do. I'm on the rocks with it. I can go with or without this. And towards the end of this episode, it kind of makes sense why they did Chucky like this for this episode, because he's absent in the main story, and I guess the network really thought you can't have a Chucky TV episode without Chucky in there, so put him in there somehow. And this is the way they thought to do it. Cutting us into the main story where Glen and Glenda have arrived, played by Lachlan Watson, who I do think is doing a good enough job playing Glen and Glenda. This is what I was most excited for this season, to see how they would bring Glen and Glenda back into continuity, because there's so many unanswered questions, and even you guys are kind of confused about it, which I think is also one of the downfalls of this whole Jennifer Tilly and Tiffany Valentine storyline that the Chucky TV series is just kind of stuck to. So doing my best to answer some of those questions I always get in the comments section is, one, where are their British accents? They're never really going to directly explain that, but my best guess is since Glen and Glenda were transferred into the souls of the baby bodies, you can just assume they were raised then in America around American people, so they just slowly lost that British accent as they grew up. And this episode did at least give us an Easter egg that Glen and Glenda are fascinated by British and English culture by calling themselves,
we're kind of Anglophiles.
The other thing people were asking about is how do they not remember that Chucky is their father or that their mother is a murderer, especially when at the end of Seed of Chucky, Glenda directly sees her mom kill somebody, and then even Glen on the other side of that getting their father's severed hand as a present. It made it seem like Glen for sure recognized who that hand belonged to. All I can say is, I don't know, man. Ask Don Mancini. But like with the title card of this episode showing a bunch of televisions, this sort of is a parody or a play on murder mystery television shows. And side note, right before the guests arrive, you can see that Tiffany has made her famous meatballs that Chucky is a big fan of.
Look, Chucky, I made Swedish meatballs. Your favorite.
That's a nice little callback there. The other interesting thing that happens here at this dinner table is Glenda asks their mother if Glenda ever did anything harmful or wrong in the past, where we get flashbacks to Glenda killing the assistant of Jennifer Tilly from Cheetah Chucky. Also mentions something interesting here that Glen also repeats in this episode, is that they feel kind of empty inside, or like there's a hole in their chest. And my best guess to what the writers in the show is hinting at here is because Glen technically is a split soul right now. It didn't make sense before, but now with the Chucky TV series introducing this whole thing that Chucky can do where he can split his soul into multiple bodies, mainly due to him being able to perform that spell at the end of the first TV series where he got a virgin to kill somebody. Glen and Glenda haven't exactly done that ritual, so because of that, their souls kind of linger for each other or want to be whole again, basically end up in one body. This would explain why they are so close to the point that they can share a boyfriend. So I found that kind of interesting. I wonder if we'll ever see them get into a doll. But then we get to the part here where Glen and Glenda have set up their own surprise party, inviting a lot of guests that are related to Jennifer Tilly, not Tiffany Valentine, as a lot of people were speculating before this episode. These are not relatives of Tiffany. These are relatives and friends of Jennifer Tilly, the actress. This is the part of the show where I had to pause it and sit there with my partner and explain to her the history about how this technically isn't Tiffany, it's an actress. It was just one of the most convoluted ways so Don Mancini can bring back Jennifer Tilly, which I don't think a lot of us are upset by. We love Jennifer Tilly. A lot of these people are actually connected to her in real life, like Gina here was somebody that was mentioned in Seed of Chucky as her co-star in the real life movie Bound, where Jennifer Tilly was kind of trying to bribe Redman for a role in the movie by saying that she can hook up a threesome with herself, Redman, and Gina. We finally get to see that actress come into the Chucky universe. Another person at the party mentions Jennifer Tilly having a bit of a poker debt. In real life, Jennifer Tilly is actually a really great poker player, so that's nice that they threw that in there. Even as far as bringing Jennifer Tilly's real life sister Meg, it's nice little inside baseball for Hollywood people who like are really aware of this behind the scene things that can kind of connect in the Chucky TV series. But I feel like the vast majority of Chucky fans and people watching this episode were so confused and going, but it also goes to show you just how messed up of a life Glen and Glenda have grown up in, where they think Jennifer Tilly is their mom and not Tiffany Valentine. This whole time the twins are being raised thinking that their mom is an actress, successful in Hollywood, surrounded by all these people, when honestly they're barely related to them. And here's admittedly where the episode was losing me, because even though I was aware of all these connections and knew the little inside joke that Chucky TV series was playing on, it just didn't interest me or excite me as much as what was already going on in this season, with the trio over there in the school, Chucky running around, Nika being held hostage, Glen and Glenda being here. This just felt like a long played out Hollywood joke that I just wasn't that invested in. But then thankfully the episode started having Glen and Glenda interact with Nika, and I got super intrigued. We see here that Glen is very aware of Nika being in Tiffany's house and wants to help her escape. This is where the show gives us a flashback to 3 months ago where the twins were visiting their mom. She passes out from being drunk. They explore the house and they come in contact with Nika. And it led to what I thought was kind of a brilliant scene where Glenda had left behind their knife on the table, goes back to retrieve it, and accidentally pricks themselves on it, triggering their father to take over Nika, giving us our first interaction with Glenda and Chucky. This was everything for me. I was loving every second of this conversation. The way not only Fiona Dourif just perfectly embodies her father, Brad Dourif, Chucky, deserves all kind of TV awards. I'm not even joking. But Glenda here, who thinks their father left them a long time ago, doesn't care about them. And then Chucky here is calling them shitface, which is a reference to Seetah Chucky, talking about how he always meant it affectionately and he does want to be part of their lives. Their mother just kind of drove him away. From that moment on, this episode rehooked me back in and I was fully invested to what was going to happen next. And I'll admit, for the most part, while I thought Lachlan Watson was doing a good job as Glen and Glenda, they weren't really giving me the same vibes of the Glen and Glenda we got in Seed of Chucky. It felt like this was a different interpretation of the characters. But once you introduce Chucky into the formula, I see the distinction between them, especially with Glen being the sweetheart. That's what we know Glen from Seed of Chucky, and they even repeat a line about Glen not being able to hurt a fly.
And we wouldn't hurt a fly. I wouldn't even hurt a fly.
So then to see something that is totally in character for Glenda that seems to be a psychotic as their father, knocking out Glenn and then being willing to kill their own mother, Jennifer Tilly, I thought was wild and crazy. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I really wanted them to pull that trigger. I think we have had enough with human Jennifer Tilly / Tiffany Valentine. There was a part of me that wanted Chucky to succeed in there and finally get rid of that character, not because I have any hate towards Tiffany or Jennifer Tilly, but I just feel like this character that Don Mancini has played into is not as interesting as it used to be. She really just comes down to a drunk who's a bad mother holding hostage Nika and nothing else. This character to me was miles more interesting in Bride of Chucky and even elements of Seed of Chucky. Now when Jennifer Tilly comes on screen, I'm just not that invested anymore. And that's not even me saying that I want her completely off the show. No, by killing her human body, I think we would just be done with that version of Tiffany and she could still be walking around in doll form, which I think is a more interesting personality than what they're doing right now with Jennifer Tilly. That's just my opinion. I know there's going to be a lot of people who feel differently. Also, side note, I love the moment when there was no bullets in that gun and then Chucky just screams, but it's through Nika's voice.
Glenda, what the fuck?
That was so perfect. Finally having Nika escape the clutches of Tiffany with a van waiting outside for them, something that the twins had all pre-planned, just like having a gun sent to them as a gift for this party. We get the official confirmation that Kyle is still alive. She did not die in season 1. Thank freaking goodness. And now Glenda, Nika, and Kyle are all gonna team up to either get rid of Tiffany or just save Nika, then go after Chucky. Gotta admit, that is like super confusing to me. All of them in that van are there for different reasons. Nika just wants to be free of Chucky. Get him out of my head. I want to be free. Kyle wants to kill Chucky and get rid of him. Glenda just wants to spend more time with their father and wants Chucky out of there. And then Glenn is over there back in the house because they're a mama's boy. They want to look after their mom and doesn't want to cause any harm to them. Just so many different crazy angles that if we started putting this on a pinboard, us Chucky fans would look kind of insane. Ending this episode off with what I think would be a nice cameo for wrestling fans of WWE. I am not one of them, but this wrestler in question by the name of Liv Morgan was somebody that just straight up asked Don Mancini, can I be on the season and get killed by Chucky? And they were like, sure, why not? Leading us to Chucky killing her on screen, saying the F-bomb 10 times. Okay, I'm sure that was awesome for WWE fans. I was sitting there going, I mean, I'm happy to look at her. She beautiful. She beautiful. But other than that, it felt really out of place and them just trying to meet their one kill by Chucky quota that they do every episode, which, I mean, hats off for sticking to that quota. So really, when it comes down to it, this episode of the Chucky TV series has been the most mixed I have ever felt about the show in general. We're definitely going back to that Seed of Chucky territory that makes me very nervous and very scared just because it's a version of Chucky I don't find that interesting. But maybe that was just them playing into that for this episode, because when it does involve the trio back in the school, the lore with Glenn and Glenda meeting their father, Nika and her performance, Kyle's back in there, we know Andy's somewhere else. That's the stuff that's got me invested. That's the stuff I want to see go down. You have a strong story here, Chucky Season 2. Please follow through with it. But again, guys, that's just my opinion on this episode. I want to hear from you guys. Whatever I say, I'm not trying to offend or hurt your feelings. If you love this and this was your favorite episode, hey, I'm happy. All I can do here, though, is always give you my honest thoughts and feel about this. I am still on board for this show, and I can't wait to see what's next, because I want to see me some buff Chucky. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chucky Boy. Take care.